After a year of the release of Andromeda, I thought I'd look at a setting that was unknown or hidden to the Mass Effect lore. That is the relay network. And what is more Mass Effect than the mass relays? Starfaring species get around the Mass Effect universe, or at least the Milky Way galaxy, through the use of mass relays, which open up massless corridors, allowing starships to travel huge distances almost instantly. There are two kinds of mass relays. Primary relays can propel a ship thousands of light years, but only link to one other relay, its partner. Secondary relays can link to any other relay over shorter distances, only a few hundred light years. This ending explosion can only be a series of secondary relays because primary relays are already aligned with another primary relay. They are not designed to align with another. Through the power of this beam, secondary relays can suddenly travel tens of thousands of light years away, including having the beam being split in two somehow. Relays don't actually do that. Remember, primary relays only link to another. Therefore, the explosions we see must be a series of secondary relays given large amounts of dark energy, which for some reason happen to align with other secondary relays in one direction, which happen to be aligned with other secondary relays, and so forth, as if every relay on the secondary network were all going to another, as if everyone that was using the relays last went to every relay that could go on their last alignment for every known open relay in the galaxy. This must be the case in order for these explosions in this order to make any sense. Therefore, all the relays, which must be secondary, are pointing to the next one in order on pure coincidence. These explosions are happening so fast, and from this camera's view and distance, receiving the beam and sending it out and exploding the relay would be nearly instantaneous. We know this is possible because the alpha relay, which, when given enough juice, became a souped-up secondary relay that could connect to 16 other relays, including the Citadel. What this means in the aftermath of Mass Effect 3, a series of relays, both primary and secondary, must have been skipped, meaning the Reaper War is still going on in those systems, as they were unaffected by the galactic explosions, if we assume the Reapers were in fact everywhere. We are talking about an entire galaxy, though. Thus, we can assume the Reapers were the last to use all the relays in whatever capacity before the network was locked down by them. This is one of many loopholes in the Crucible solution, or the mass relay network, that Mass Effect 3 either never bothered with or simply invented and never bothered to think about. So in Mass Effect Prime, let's assume entire sections of the Milky Way galaxy are unaffected, and they must be, and this is as close as we can get to the understanding of the ending of Mass Effect 3's relay explosions, which is a galactic mess. Yes, I'm working with a galactic mess, but it's our galactic mess. BioWare made the mess, we're cleaning it up for a product we actually want in a franchise called Mass Effect. There are, of course, other relays as well. Many mass relays are currently dormant for unknown reasons, though they can be easily reactivated. So here we have a workable setting for Mass Effect 5, or 4, since Andromeda is inconsequential to the sequel. It uses the existing mass relays that were unaffected by the ending of Mass Effect 3, dormant relays that were never even used, and their corresponding undiscovered and untouched areas of the galaxy. Primarily the Reaper War, but on a much smaller scale. Reapers that were unaffected by the beam are in this area of space, and they're doing their thing. Regardless, Reapers are pretty darn difficult to stop, so this shouldn't be a small challenge. Nature, or nothing, because entire planets or civilizations and solar systems were never discovered yet, so pre-space travel civilizations are still around, as are new alien species, and those that do actually have space travel we never met yet. Lots of first contact situations. There's the preservation of the Citadel species civilizations. That's our first goal as we're escaping the war, and then we realize we're still in the war. There's the opening up of new relays to explore new areas of the galaxy, to hide in, to find resources. This also involves keeping relays from accessing outside the primary network, so no Reapers can get in. It's like taking over a relay and making it yours. Then there's the choosing to uplift certain civilizations if you so desire. This is primarily a resource game, which goes back into wartime. So what's more important, bodies or raw materials? How hidden do you keep your small civilization, and do you choose to uplift others to help fight Reapers? And eventually, making contact with the aftermath of Mass Effect 3. That should be a near-ending scenario. Most basic is exploration of uncharted worlds, opening up new relays, discovering new solar systems, having space combat in an RTS homeworld style. I think 3D real-time wouldn't be very lore-friendly or easy to play, as Reapers would pretty much one-shot you. And Guardian laser knife fights would also decimate you before you got close to anything. See, the original lore in Mass Effect was so hard science fiction that the rest of the series didn't make sense of it. Then, of course, there's the exploration of new planets, but not in the traditional landing on planets and waltzing around for no purpose. That's a big waste of time. We have spaceships, we do scans from orbit, and there should be only boots on ground levels for the story. And for God's sakes, no bloody cars. But when we do have boots on the ground missions, we're going to be using shuttles. We're going to be using squads of 3 as usual. This is standard third-person shooter stuff from the Mass Effect genre. Choosing between stealth and open combat options would be the big choice here. Remember, this game is all about stealth, as our primary mission is to hide from the Reaper War, or the Reapers in general, all for preservation. So we've got stealth suits, stealth shuttles, stealth engines, ships, stealth guns. That's our standard equipment as a base. We then develop more lethal or non-lethal options, how we deal with species and get such conflicts resolved, and the upgrades we get from those conflicts, or those species perhaps. We then discover Prothean relics and cities, of course, and potentially other alien civilizations that could be as old as the Protheans or older. We are in an unknown part of the galaxy after all. And if we do have some progenitor machine race, we're going to find meaningful things about them. They're not just going to be another plot device to get oxygen on a planet. So a major component is the base building and resource management. There's going to be no mineral mining. That should be automated in some capacity, and being underground, our minerals would become naturally as we expand our colony. Base building of self-sustaining underground bunker cities. After borrowing holes in the earth, we can use such areas for certain kinds of colony development, like habitation, food production, air and water recycling, science labs. Think of Mass Effect Fallout Shelter with a lot more detail. So there's resource management, what to build, what to research next, where to scout for new resources under the ground, very light on resources for you to acquire, so you're making choices that advance in certain ways in a very slow pace. Lots of tech trees, machine upgrades, all kinds of little bonuses for you to uncover and research. So there's going to be things like mining lasers, and you upgrade these mining lasers and you look for EZO and all sorts of new elements. I guess you'll be looking for elf fruit as well. You're just not walking around on the surface and pulling it out of the ground with your bare hands. So on top of or alongside base building would be the issuing of administrative orders. These are like who to put in charge of certain colonies, the mayor, the security leader, or how to quell dissent. All kinds of stats and units for you to manage. So non-combat related missions would be used to send personnel and squad members on for the purpose of doing a variety of clandestine operations. We are, after all, masters of stealth. This could relate to covert ops, depending on your species, how nefarious or how lawful you are. So what kind of colony are you going to make? What kind of civics are you going to employ? Essentially, this is future spycraft, all for the keeping of the peace, keeping hidden from the Reapers, and making sure your colonies survive. So that is a lot of gameplay. They have 3 systems there, a homeworld space combat one, a third-person shooter, and base building. This is a AAA title. It's totally doable, especially with less focus on big maps and more focus on gameplay. Okay, so this is essentially a pioneer story, but we're putting it back into the Mass Effect Milky Way galaxy. So, let's say before Tim went all Reaper crazy, he wanted a backup plan to save humanity because he's a super genius with lots of money. At least I'd like to think so, before he could amass an army to the point where we're fighting them half the time, and more so than the billion-year-old conquering machine gods. So, he decided to send a human expedition through a dormant relay no one knew of, and then destroy it, or make it hidden to the relay network on the Citadel so there are no records of it. Tim got this info from reading Mass Effect Ascension, and found out about the Adena going through the dormant relay, and we know about that because we learned about it in Mass Effect 2 through Lieutenant Forzen. However, Tim wasn't dumb. He didn't want to start a war with the Council, so he made friends through an intermediary, let's call her Jean Garson, to get one of the dormant relays opened. After much negotiation and throwing money at the problem, the Council got on board, a lot of species got on board, with their own giant ships, smaller ships, medium ships, whoever wants to go, and yada yada, we're off to the unknown parts of the galaxy with essentially the same setup, minus the 600 plus years voyage, the Mass Effect cryosleeping, and the giant unfinished space station, because that's all just rather silly. Unfortunately, the Reapers arrive as they do in Mass Effect 3, so the Council desperately speeds up their ARC project and send all those on board with some corresponding ships through the dormant relay, at around this time, which is after the Thessia mission near the ending of Mass Effect 3.
Then you'll excuse me. There are generations to make, continuity of civilization to consider. I never thought this day would come.
Jean Garson becomes a hero by blowing up some Reapers in the solar system she was in because drama, and that's a good reason to leave the Milky Way galaxy as well as a method in an action-packed dramatic exit. And how do we hide from the Reapers? We mimic the Protheans. Thus, the expedition was safely protected, and the Reapers, who ever saw the ships leaving, were destroyed, and they never knew about the project. Or so we thought. So to summarize, you're a Council-sponsored Secret Cerberus operation to save the Council races, mostly humanity, that escaped through the dormant relay during the events of Mass Effect 3 when everyone knows the Reapers are here. The secret is out, and everyone's trying to survive.
This is not good.
You are not Saren.
The Reaper War is over in Mass Effect 3, but not the Reapers in this story. They're cut off from the Citadel, whatever it did, and thus are still busy looking for intelligent life to kill, or procreate through. Big bad mysterious enemy, let's try and keep things that way this time. Reapers don't care about whether relays were turned on or off. They go wherever they wanted to go. They make the damn things, and they never got the big magical destructive control or soylent green signal, so they're still reaping and doing whatever it is they do. However, the Reapers in the Prime Network will realize that all other contact to the rest of the relay network and their fellow capital ships, including this fellow, are gone, and they're stranded in the Prime Relay Network. What are they going to do? Well, three things, really. Destroy stuff, because procreation, sleep, or just chill out and be all godlike by doing nothing, or three, set up shop and start assimilating species for building things. Since they can't do manual labor themselves, they need slaves of sorts. This is what Reapers do. And this is the most significant part of the story, since Reapers are space gods, and the Ark project is largely in jeopardy if there are still Reapers around, especially in our area. So all internal politics would be pushed to the side as survival and victory are key overarching plot goals. Of course, you're the one who has to manage all that. Primary plot is survival. Well, how do you do that? You build an underground bunker city just like Ilos. Cerberus was researching Ilos and how it was undetected in the previous cycle, so they have plans to create entire colonies underground and being Reaper hidden. And the Ark ships are actual drills for a ship to embed themselves into a planet and create a hidden colony. This would make for some really cool ship-level designs. If the collectors can fly in space and land on a planet at a difference of 90 degrees, so can we. Thank you, Tim. Oh my goodness, I'm making Mass Effect 2 relevant again. If we're surviving, that means we're maintaining a civilization. So you're going to need a system of trade, so a lot of work will be micromanagement, base building, resource gathering, equipment and technology building and upgrading, interstellar trade, management, exploration, setting up trade between hidden colonies, and having all sorts of stealth communication devices to hide themselves from various kinds of LADAR and radar detection, and always monitoring Reaper movements and behavior over the solar systems and changing your technology to keep all of this hidden. Politics will obviously play a role, but it's emerging politics with the directive of survival and constantly keeping systems dark being key. Old grudges and issues of the past are almost long forgotten, and everyone is trying to get by, or so we'd like to believe. Krogans still have the genophage problem, Quarians still have their immune system issues, the Drell don't like aquatic environments, and so on. While specific Ark ships will be creating initial bunkers, diversity of species will create different cultures and internal issues of police management, systems of government building, and all sorts of fun city creation components that cause problems in production and lifestyle in species' particularized habitats. And finally, how we deal with the Reapers. Since we're fighting Reapers, the problem arises between how we can manufacture our canes and fleets properly, or new kinds of canes and fleets, or new solutions entirely. Since the Reapers are cut off from the Godchild, some are operating on their own prerogatives. Thus, we're going to have Reaper factions.
My kind transcends your very understanding. We are each a nation, independent, free of all weakness. You cannot even grasp the nature of our existence.
Reaper Faction 1 wants to kill you and turn you into a godly goo, or whatever that is. Reaper Faction 2 wants to dominate and control and otherwise have you worship them, but they're not completely violent. They're kind of just think themselves as gods, and so should you. Reaper Faction 3 wants to sleep and talk and study and do non-violent things. essentially get along but be uninvolved. They're gods, you're bacteria, you might be able to get their attention, steal some tech, or negotiate, who knows. Now each faction works through intermediaries, or clones, or facsimiles of their conquered integrated species. We want to keep Reapers mysterious and their actions indirect. Thus a fail state is not constantly keeping your bunker dark, and they'll come by and crush you and destroy your colony. This is what you do with mysterious, incomprehensible ideas and characters. It's just basic storytelling. Some Reaper factions will be using old-fashioned enemies from Mass Effect 3 and the Heretic Geth and any new conquered species from ages past as avatars, as well as some new ones, less horror-inducing based on their faction mentality. And I'm sure visual artists would have a great time making all sorts of hideous and beautiful-looking robotic, cybernetic, and organic versions of Reaper species and their derivatives. Hopefully not any flying bug people, but that could change. So plenty of new yet old aliens for us to interact with. The simplest would be to have the player choose the military leader of the expedition, where you can choose your own species, sex, and voice set, similar to how Dragon Age Inquisition did it.
As long as the job gets done, I don't care about the rest.
Seems pretty doable. You should make your character a Spectre as a base. So if you're human, you're also N7. If you're Solarian, you're also STG. If you're Asari, you're Justicar, etc. You get the best of the best. You're awesome. You have the power. Everyone listens to you to ensure their survival, because this is a survival mission. So being a Spectre, you'd have to uphold the Council's wishes, but you're also in charge. So you're probably going to bend and break some rules.
Oh, don't make me laugh. Damn it, my face is barely holding together as it is. Some women find facial scars attractive. Mind you, most of those women are Krogan. Just like old times.
Here's my first creative license here. Get Tim, Edie, Miranda, and make them one AI. We'll call them the Benefactor. So they share a VI visual, kind of like how each plot point of Mass Effect 2 had Tim talk to you. Well, now it's going to be a VI Tim, Medianda, Miridim, Edie, Randim, whatever. Tim is more Renegade, Edie is more Paragon, Miranda is Paragade. They make a good split personality AI. Fun psychology times all around. Tim wants power and human dominance. Edie wants to learn and get along with everyone. And Miranda just wants hugs. Think of them as helping the main character, giving goals, talking to them in situations, and being generally helpful in providing options and information. I don't personally like this idea, but if people miss the concept of talking to Hackett or Tim or Sam in previous games, this will certainly say Mass Effect to you. And they certainly will not be a walking plot device, that's for sure. You solve your own damn problems by yourself. For humans, we have Alec Ryder, which therefore implies that Andromeda never happened, but don't worry about that. Being a single dad, he's very progressive. Ooh! He's also the perfect candidate for opening up new relays in uncharted territory, because that's what he's known for. What an idea. Glad I didn't even have to think about that one. So whenever we find a new relay, he'll be on the scene and doing his thing. He's got his mysterious backstory that gets slowly revealed. Maybe Tim likes him more because his whole family is biotic. His skill is exploration, meaning he has skills perfect for being a survivalist. And he's got technical skills if he's into AI research. And we'll make him more interesting here. So he's renegade, he believes strongly in human supremacy, and he's rather bitter from the First Contact War and sees most aliens as inferior, but he's not stupid about being racist or speciesist. Lots of people admire him because of his N7 stuff and being a war veteran. Perfect captain for the human arc. For a female, I was thinking of a strong, capable female also in N7 like Lee Riley, but we can't use her because she can die depending on your choices in Mass Effect 3, so let's go with Gianna Parasini. Her skills are still in white-collar crime, but has gone through some military training as a result of the Reaper War. She gets drafted by the ARC project due to her negotiation skills, getting stuff done, and is quite detective. So, her main skill is negotiation and solving issues in administration. She's more Paragon, and she'll be in charge of doing covert operations if you so choose, but she's also good at administration. Turians, I would go with Lorik Queen. He's a businessman, though fed up with the bureaucracy of the Citadel. Previously, on one playthrough, he becomes the administrator of Port Hanshan, and he was asked by the Council to lead the Turian Arc. Being Turian, he automatically has military training. Being a businessman, his main skill is administration and economics. Great for emerging colony life. He's Paragon mindset. And because he's pure business, think of him like trying to achieve a libertarian-style economy very much like Morgan from Alpha Centauri. You could put him in charge of colony development if you choose. So I don't have too many female Atarians to choose from. There's, of course, Vetra. She gets stuff done. She's military. I see nothing wrong with inventing, other Atarians, like that flexible female that Garrus refers to here. That would be great. Garrus's sparring partner, whoever you are, regardless of who we invent here. She'll be a renegade for getting stuff done, not caring about consequences, being the most expedient in solving problems. You tell her to jump, she's already in the air, that sort of person. She's your perfect right-hand woman and will do anything to get the job done. And she'll be the one where Garrus was taught how to calibrate, who later ascended to godhood. Yes, you're welcome, progressive agenda. Behind every amazing alien gun god, there's an equally interesting female gun god. Okay? Okay. For the Asari, we have lots of options. You could probably just invent a matriarch. That'd be totally fine. But I'd go with Justicar Fora. Always nice to have a Justicar around. She was tasked with preserving the Asari culture, so she'd be a perfect fit. And she has the habit of killing things, so her skill is more Asari authority and biotic tactical power. She's obviously more renegade than Paragon or Renegon, as a Justicar's code goes against basic laws like not killing people because they look at you funny. She'll strive for Asari dominance, very similar to how Tim views humanity. We are talking about preserving an entire species, so she's dead serious as always. Similar to the Turian female renegade, she'll be expedient in all actions, so pretty good in doing military operations and even negotiations due to her imposing attitude and her ability to memorize the 5,000 sutras in her code. She'll have no problems poring over the details of a contract. I can definitely see her in charge of the Asari arc, as she would be the definitive cultural and military leader of her people. I would expect bonus dialogue if your main character is also a Justicar as well. And now I'm playing favorites again with the Asari, and that would be Shiala. She and her colony were concerned with staying alive during the Reaper War. They wanted to relocate. The Council needed help with the Ark project. These were colonists, and they knew all about their ship, and they got picked up by the Council, and they were a perfect fit. She's like a military leader with her own little army. And she'll make her part of a plot point where her negotiation skill with Reapers will be highest, since she can block their influence due to her Thorian mind control abilities. She'll be Paragon and will always strive for unity among disputes, always resorting to negotiation, but being an Asari commando can certainly back up any problems with a variety of forces. And her condition and backstory would make a perfect plot point, as well as how she deals with the theme of control. For Solarians, we have all kinds of options like Zevin Reka, Shells, Tazik, Jandam Bao, Kirihi, and Malon. Those three would have been great, but they can be killed, and the Dalatras might not work so well. But Joram Tan, that would be fine. Commander Rentola, Olin Kuth, and Kalojath. Those are cool. Solarians are, of course, extremely expedient and care mostly for results due to their short lifespan. So Olin Kuth would be a good example. Zevin Reka, she would be a good Paragon, but I don't like using the female action character. That seems counteractive to how Solarian females are to be treated, at least in the lore. I think a new Dalatras would work as a Paragon, so keep Olin Kuth, Renegade, new Dalatras, Paragon, and the new Dalatras would be worried about getting people to work together along in their community, and of course be building their colony and making sure the Solarian culture is preserved. That sounds about right. And now we have the Quarians. These are just the perfect species for this kind of story. I don't know why they weren't used at all in Andromeda. It seemed like a total waste. But we are still limited in terms of who we can use here, as most are either dead or still in Mass Effect 3, unless we invent our own characters. I think Admiral Zen and Admiral Shalaran Vastanbe, those two would have been perfect. The voice actors alone would have made me very happy, but unfortunately they can both die in the game, and they are definitely involved in Mass Effect 3 a great deal. So we have to look to the books, and I think we have to go to Mass Effect Ascension, which is a Drew Karpashian book. And the first character that comes out at me is Captain Yisun Mal Vasidena. He's the captain of the Adena, of course. This is the best fit for the setting, honestly. Captain Mal then prepared to lead his crew on a 5-year mission through a recently activated mass relay into uncharted space. Whether they are part of the Ark project or you catch up with them, or somehow part of the setting when we arrive, we can have so many variations of how this works out. It pretty much writes itself. Let's make him Renegade as he'll do anything to ensure the homeworld for the coherent people. He will colonize a goddamn planet, and he will live there. He'll even open up new mass relays resorting to extreme genome tests if he wants. Let's make him an extremist. He's also not too fond of Cerberus, as most are, so he'll have a good focus on his coherent culture more than most, which says a lot. And then we'll have his crew. There's one character called Lem Shal Vasidena, who's also on board the crew of Videna, of course, has a shotgun, this signature shotgun he's known for. He's basically a space cowboy. Dena has gone through some battle scars, as we know from Mass Effect 2. It's just getting by, so the ARC project was perfect for it. I mean, these two guys are about as close as we would get to Mal, or this guy, or Mass Effect's version of Firefly, I guess. Just hire Nathan Fillion or Steve Blum. We are good to go. And of course, the best example of a female Quarian, I think, is Leah Vale, Nar Ulnaim. She's adorable. She's Paragon, wants a new homeworld, family-oriented. She's had a hard life. Just give her a ship. Just give her puppies on that ship. I really don't care. She was hanging out the Citadel, caught wind of the Council project involving ships. Her magic eyes just light up, and boom, she's perfect. She's on board. She helped to build the ARC ship. She's in charge. It's beautiful. God damn it, BioWare, just make this woman happy. Just freaking do it, okay? With the Drell, again, not many options. I'd probably go with a female this time around just to have them. A mix between Thane and Kasumi. They'd be in charge of covert operations if you wanted. They do all the dirty work that goes on behind the scenes. I don't think the Drell will get an actual ARC ship, but they would have a few ships, so their community is very limited, but they're still around. The Krogan would be another very difficult species to put in the setting due to them mostly dying and being clan-centric. Also, just making the mercenaries is somewhat pointless. The Krogan shamans, those would be kind of good, because, well, the one example in Mass Effect 2 contains all the traditions and history of the Krogan, but he never really abandoned his people like that, especially in the Reaper War. Making a new shaman would probably be the best bet. But if we do look at the lore for existing Krogans, there would be Nax from Mass Effect Galaxy. He'd be okay. He's Paragon. He cares for his Asari friend, but still a Krogan. I see nothing wrong with that, though I don't really have much information on him. And to employ my second creative license that I can get without being biased or have my own personal take in this video would be a clone of Okeer. If Okeer can do a variety of genetic cloning experiments to create Grunt, it wouldn't be too far off for him to be able to clone himself and have his own imprints at the time of his demise, essentially an evil genius sort of thing. This would make sense because the genophage is still a thing, and he'd still want to preserve the Krogan species. Okeer also isn't liked by the Krogan, so him wanting to continue their legacy in another part of the galaxy outside of the Reaper influence would seem justifiable. He'd want to make the genomes of every species stronger because he's a Krogan, and start doing very unorthodox forms of genetic manipulation, and he'd work perfectly with the theme of control. And we have Batarians. They'd probably still want revenge on humans for what Shepard did to them in the Bahak system, but those are minor political issues amongst the problems of remaining hidden and dealing with the Reaper factions. So the only one I could really think of that would work here is Jath Amon. He's from Mass Effect Galaxy, being the mastermind and final boss of the game, if that was a spoiler to anyone who cares, and having cut a deal with the Citadel. They would need his expertise in understanding relays and other such organizational and administrative talents he would have in organizing his people to survive. In desperate times, you might need even criminals to help you out, and he's maybe reformed and potentially could be a very good plot point. Other supporting characters could be new and old species, Arachni, Geth, the Ralloy, that would be cool to see, a Volus, a Hanar, an Elcor, Vorcha. Go nuts. Use your imagination. I don't have too much to work with here with those species, but we're all in Reaper survival mode on a limited scale. We're unlocking relays, we're setting up hidden underground colonies, we're discovering new species and dealing with the Reaper factions. We're essentially reacting to the Reaper war that we should have been doing in the third game. We're surviving in any way possible, since victory was never an option until it magically was. I think the main thing would be man versus man, or man versus himself, getting along versus dominating other species, meaning using one species over another. Maybe you might have to obliterate one. How to deal with crime events, with social strife, all sorts of base building and culture problem scenarios. how to set up proper covert operations against each other in particular factions to keep people working together properly, uplifting some species like the Ralloi, or some new imaginative one I'm not going to get into here. There's, Tim, there's Ryder, there's Miss Flexibility, there's Justicar Fora, Olin Kuth, Captain Mal. They would be on board with these kinds of themes. Then there's the man versus nature theme, so setting up a clandestine series of colonies on an alien planet, how to properly conduct trade between all of them, how do you build your bases? Do you build close to each other, or do you go across planets? Do you go across solar systems? Is that safe? Do you know that the Reapers are going to be there? How do you deal with internal politics? How can we simplify politics to simple series of resource management scenarios? That can be resolved in gameplay. Do you dominate each other? Do you work together? How do you deal with the Quarian immune problem? How do you deal with the genophage problem? How do you deal with violent species? How do you deal with the Rachni if they're along? Or whomever comes along that's violent? And perhaps the biggest one is all of this futile? Are we just fighting the Reapers only realizing it's all a waste of our time? Can we actually communicate with them for us to survive? What chances of survival do we have? And of course, the final theme that Mass Effect is known for is man versus machine. How do we deal with the three Reaper factions? What do we do with the Geth? Are they our slaves? Can we uplift them? Can we free them? Can we upgrade them? Do we give them their own colony? What do we do? What do we do with the possibility of an AI uprising in one of our colonies? Maybe they want to come back and fight us afterward. Who knows? And what to do with the potentially indoctrinated colonists with AI rebellions if you happen to use those in your colonies. And near the ending, how we communicate back to the ending of Mass Effect 3. That's its own theme, if you want to think about it. This would have two major impacts. The start of the game, what ships and personnel you can start with. The best playthrough, you get everything. The worst playthrough, you get nothing. Simple as that. After a few months in the story, a relay comes back online and connects to the Prime network, even though you thought you shield them off from the rest of the network. But who comes through? Well, in Mass Effect 3, if you chose Destroy, a bad Destroy, nothing comes through. If you chose the best Destroy, the Council sent a fleet in to mop up the Reapers in the Prime setting. Kind of like they're on a crusade, and you have to deal with whether you befriended Reapers or not in your Prime, and whether at that point your colonies are pro or con Council. How did you raise them? If Control, are the Reapers in your part of the galaxy going to fight back? Or comply with the Shepherd Reapers? Will you go along with God Emperor Shepard's directive, which is either unity or division through power, if you went Paragon or Renegade? If Synthesis, are you going to accept their hybrid transformation, or are you going to fight them off and are going to have your own crusade against an alien abomination? This is where the Puritans of each alien leader, their factions, would have a massive Landsmeet-like scenario where you end up creating a whole host of friends and enemies. So the game should break down into these main acts. 1. Establish underground bases and economies, trade routes, new species, space and exploration combat, all under the focus of stealth. 2. Deal with the various politics, factions, and characters, so covert actions, new species, uplifting some or not, our faction leaders, taking over entire colonies if necessary. How do you upgrade your ship, your bases? What stealth tech do you use? What bonuses do you get from helping who, etc.? 3. How to deal with the Reapers, destroy, befriend, or ignore. And 4. Deal with the Mass Effect 3 ending getting into Prime. A Landsmeet scenario, final confrontation with every faction, friend, or enemy, and what final battle takes place between which side you're on. BioWare's Mass Effect has pretty much been a guilty pleasure. I can go for hours talking about possibilities, ideas, game designs, story concepts and layouts, and the horrors and cool stuff that came out of it. Obviously, I think you can as well. Now, this is my idea of a setting, characters and gameplay, and some actions a player might want to see or take upon themselves in a sequel to Mass Effect 3. The setting has always been there. I'm not going to illustrate an entire series of plot points or fan fiction concepts at this. This is all just fun for me. I tend to do this every time in obviously smaller capacities when I think about the series and what happened to its latest iteration. I think the magic is still there. The spark of creativity hasn't gone out. It's just been clouded by too many cooks and not clearly enough thought out ideas. Resources and time don't seem to be the problem here. thank you very much for listening. Feel free to leave your own ideas in the comments, and have a great day.